If Ango says AEW storytelling is very weak and they should go back to the original vision of being a sports-based product, why would you clown on me, yet celebrate it when Tony Khan announces that's exactly what he's doing? And that's a little bit of the problem with criticism in the IWC. Is it actually genuine? Or are you just ride or die for Triple H or Tony Khan so much so that you're willing to say a lot of dumb shit to people on the internet while you hide behind a profile picture? I ask this because this is exactly what has happened. In the last few years, it was very evident that AEW lost its vision along the way. They started to lean way more into sports entertainment, and the inconsistency in storytelling led them to what I would say a very troublesome period in the company. And that's okay because they're still a young company. You got to figure things out along the way. But AEW's ticket sales were dropping, pay-per-view buys weren't necessarily going crazy. You know, ratings, if you care about that type of thing, they weren't really getting improved. But they lost their identity along the way. And I've been saying for a long time, this is not the AEW that I enjoyed initially. Now, I think AEW is very good at booking matches. It's the same reason why I've spent more money going to AEW pay-per-views in the last few years than WWE pay-per-views in the last few years. Because I know the environment and the matches are always going to slap. And it's cool because if you go back 2-3 years and I tell you guys in video form, I say, hey, you should still watch the pay-per-view, regardless of what you think of the build, because there's nothing like it. And I still agree with that. AEW did over 80,000 ticket sales for All In, a remarkable achievement. And I'm glad that they did that. I'm glad that AEW was able to accomplish that. That's a very significant achievement. And they're probably going to do it again, which is also very awesome. But the reality is, AEW is better off putting big matches on a card, following a ranking system, making wins and losses matter, and not lean so heavy into the sports entertainment stuff. Toni Storm is my favorite character in AEW, and she could still definitely do this character. But the good thing about a ranking system is that while you have characters, you can also let them do what they need to do in the ring to win matches. It's scripted television, my friends, but at the end of the day, they are all incredible athletes. You throw in a little bit of character work here and there, it just makes for better content. I don't need AEW to be like WWE. They cannot replace WWE. I do not think they are better at storytelling than WWE. I've said that since day one, and I say that now, on January 22nd, 2024. But guys, they don't need to be better than WWE in that regard. They need to be better than WWE at being the alternative to WWE. If you're a WWE fan and you enjoy wrestling, you're going to enjoy the potential alternative when you see that they actually stand on their own as their own product. That's what I enjoyed about AEW at first. It felt like an actual alternative. And I knew at one point it was starting to get away from that. And that was everything that I didn't want to see with the company. You know, it's really interesting because with the ranking system, AEW wasn't perfect with it, and I made that very clear. It was actually pretty flawed. But that's something that's easy to fix if you're actually interested in fixing it. Like those flaws that they had with the ranking system weren't that bad, but the reality is, how bad did they really want to follow the ranking system? I don't know. I wasn't convinced that that was something they were 100% on board with. Now I think Brian Alvarez said that CM Punk was the one who told them to get away from it. Now listen, I'm sorry guys, but Tony Khan doesn't need to be listening to the wrestlers. Tony Khan needs to listen to the wrestlers in other regards, but the physical changing of your vision, I don't know if I necessarily like that idea. At the end of the day, I think the ranking system really allowed for some great content and some great matches. And if you're AEW, you should have 100% lean into that. Again, leaning into the sports entertainment stuff didn't work out in their favors. And that's not, look, I mean, we could just talk about opinions that are subjective and stuff like that, but obviously the proof was in the numbers. We saw a decline of AEW. It was very clear that the honeymoon phase was over when that started to happen. So why would you lean into it? You don't. What you do is you do what you're good at. You have Kenny Omega. You have Kota Ibushi. You have Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland. Like, you have a fantastic roster. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy for saying this. As a huge MJF fan, I'm enjoying Samoa Joe's championship reign so much more in such little time. And I think that largely has to do with the fact that it reminds me of the old AEW days. And that's all I really wanted. I didn't want them to be another WWE, and quite honestly, I didn't want AEW to be like anything else. Even when people would compare them to New Japan Pro Wrestling, I wanted AEW to be what AEW was because that is when I enjoyed AEW the most. Does that make me a hater for criticizing them? No. It's all about being genuine, and I think a lot of the IWC is not genuine at all. And I think that is very evidently clear by these troll accounts on Twitter, the ones that literally hate absolutely everything about WWE and absolutely hate everything about AEW. Both companies, I don't care. The tribalism's bullshit. It's whack. It's not funny. It's not cool. And honestly, I don't even enjoy seeing it or partaking in the tribalism, because ultimately at the end of the day, that doesn't make any sense for me as a content creator who makes money in this industry. Like, why would I want one of these companies to die? But at the end of the day, that's what gets the loudest reactions, those types of accounts. But they're not genuine. Yeah, like, they're not genuine at all. They probably don't even watch the product, you know. And I feel like with AEW, the best thing that they could do is just focus on the vision, focus on their identity, focus on what made them good. Because a lot of these accounts that are anti-AEW or anti-WWE, there's a very small percentage of them, but the reactions and the clout that they get from these posts, that makes them the loudest ones in the room. And I'm very hopeful that Triple H and Tony Khan never, ever, ever see those types of reactions and think, they speak volume for us, because they do not. I'm glad that Tony Khan made this. I think this will save AEW. I think this will literally get the perception of AEW back on track. I think this will shape AEW for the next several years. You have the roster to do it. You already put good matches together. For crying out loud, we're getting Minoru Suzuki versus Adam Copeland. If you follow the ranking system consistently, that's incredible. That right there in itself changes everything. There's no more complaints about what's the story here. Those criticisms are invalid when you have a ranking system. As long as the ranking system is actually met with consistency, it doesn't matter what the story is. The story is just a sprinkle on top. But I think when AEW really tried to put story first, and then you got away from the original vision, I think what ended up happening was AEW wasn't consistent enough with those wins and losses, and then on top of that, the storyline. Put on great matches, tell the story in the ring, and there you go. That right there is a massive win for AEW. Because I'm just being honest, I'm not going to watch AEW for their storytelling. While they have some good stories here and there, they weren't consistent with their storytelling. So I'm sure I'm going to read comments to this video and everything else, but I'm sure a lot of these comments will have not watched this entire video, and that's okay. Because at the end of the day, the conversations I enjoy having are the ones that are genuine, and that's why we have a Discord. So if you guys aren't in the Discord, check it out. But yeah, this is a massive W for AEW. Obviously, a very good time for AEW to do it. Samoa Joe's a hell of a champion. You got a lot of cool stuff happening with the International Championship and Roderick Strong, and there's just so much more. Tag team division seems to be getting back on track. Like, that's what I'm talking about. That's what AEW needs to focus on. Focus on the vision. Focus on your identity and do it consistently. And it's not going to happen overnight, but it should get a lot of things back on track in a short period of time. And that's what I think they needed to do. And ultimately, if you're bringing in Okada and Mercedes, that's going to be even massive for this vision, because they're great entertainers, but they're also incredible wrestlers.